Hey guys, give me a second. Hold up. There we go. Hope y'all are doing well today. Of course, everything that I just put there got deleted. Oh well. So, I am TJ from TJ Tell Us the Truth, Truthful Ministries. How you guys doing this morning? So, I'm going to be getting into how my life used to be. How I used to struggle. How I used to be living a life where I was just completely lost. And I was in so much pain. But I kept living, in a way where I would be numbing myself. I wouldn't want to experience the pain of existing. All these moments, it's crazy because I might have a lot of stories, but but I could also take all these stories and I could sum it down to like a handful of things. But it's a misery and it's a suffering that I went through day after day after day after day after day. And a lot of it is because of trauma that I went through when I was young, when I was a kid, when I didn't even realize what I had gone through. I was sexually abused when I was a baby. To put it, I don't know how else to put it. Then when I got older, I was about 5 years old. I was exposed to hardcore lesbian pornography. And that's because somebody put the wrong VHS tape, which you're probably a lot of you aren't old enough to even know what a VHS tape is, but a VHS tape is like it's you go to like this place called Blockbuster, which also doesn't exist, so I don't think that really helps you. But anyway, we would go to this place, and then they have like electronic tapes. So they have like it's electronic strip, and then they imprint the video and stuff on it. Whatever. You'd have to wind it back when you're done watching it. It doesn't automatic. You can't just start from the beginning like a CD or whatever, or a file. You know, you can't just start over. You have to rewind it. It actually takes a motor. But anyways, getting off topic. Um, so we were gonna watch the movie Flubber, and I remember we were 5 years old, and I remember my friend's mom. She just, looked, just picked up the case. She looked at the outside of it. She's like, "Oh, look, it's the movie that I thought it was gonna be, right?" She didn't open it up and look at what the movie it was. She just popped it in. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the time, some of these tapes they would either have like no label, a tiny little paper label in between, um, and then a lot of times people would tape over them. So sometimes you wouldn't even have the original like movie that's on the tape because the tape would be, you know what I mean? Good morning, Michael. How you doing? My friend Josh was telling me to like try to bring those who don't know Christ and are lost to Christ, you know. So I'm trying to tell them what I was like when I was my old creation and why. So I was exposed to porn and all these sorts of things, and a lot of other people they may have similar experiences. Um, it may not be exactly that, but they have similar experiences where their innocence as a child was robbed from them in some ways. And it's because of that innocence that was robbed from me. You know what I mean? And then I was 9 years old. I discovered, masturbation and stuff. And then also, I was probably like 9 or 10 years old, and there was these pop-up ads that you could just not like if you wanted to download video games or if you wanted to visit certain websites, right? Like these pop-ups, they would come up, and there would be nothing you could do about it. Hey, Vicky, how you doing? God bless you too. There would be these pop-ups of porn at 9, 10 years old that they would just flood the computer. I mean, they did not have pop-up blockers for this back then. You know what I mean? And a lot of them, if you clicked on it, you would end up even getting a virus. But my mind, you see how like my mind was destroyed? And then at that same age and that same time frame, I ended up going to this party that my parents went to in Jersey, and they know these they're Czechoslovakian people, so they're a little more uh, open sexually and stuff. You know what I mean? And it's like they had a hidden bookshelf door over there, and I remember being a kid, and what kid doesn't want to go through like a hidden entrance? You know what I mean? It was like the movies. You know what I mean? You pull the book, the door opens. You know what I mean? It was amazing, and the guy was a cabinet maker, so that's why the guy was able to make these sorts of cool things, And so the door swung open. I go through. I feel like I'm in this movie. You know what I mean? Like on a movie set. I go through the other door, and then there's this lady getting banged from both ends. You know what I mean? And I just remember walking back and like closing the doors and just being like scarred. Like, you know what I mean? That's something that just never left me. And it's because of the reason why I'm telling you guys this stuff is so you guys have context as to why I am the way I am. Nobody just gets this way, right? Satan, what he comes to do is he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And what he does is he robs children of their innocence because he wants them damaged. He wants them lost. He wants them, unable to be able to function and to be able to go on and to survive. And so I went through a lot of like suffering in my life. And this is just as a child. You know, when I was a kid, when I was 5 years old, 6 years old, they put me in self-esteem classes because I didn't love myself. Because I was incapable of showing myself love because I was incapable of being like the other kids. You know what I mean? Like if it was cold outside and it was winter and, you know, all I had was a sweatshirt on, not even a winter jacket. I would be that kid that takes his sweatshirt off to give the kid that has a winter jacket an extra layer of clothing. You see, it's good for a kid to have a good heart, but it's not good to the point where he is sacrificing himself, you know what I mean, for others. But you know what? You know want to know something? It is good, but you do it in the name of Jesus. You do it for Jesus, right? That's when that sacrificial comes through, because when you start doing it for man and man alone and man's reasoning alone, well, then you end up with self-righteousness, and then you end up being stung by that scorpion as well. So, I went through all this trauma and all these things that have shaped me. And it's because of that trauma, that inability to love myself, that inability to accept myself, that lack of awareness that's required for someone to be able to separate, abuse from worth. Because a lot of people who are abuse victims, right, they conflate the abuse that they go through with their worth. And those aren't exactly how it works. That's not how it works. Your worth and what abuse that you go through are not, equal. Because your abuser is going to do things to you regardless of your worth. It is because they are struggling. It is because they are going through a hard time. It is because they have been damaged by life themselves, that you either take the damage that you have and you help others heal from it, or you end up being somebody who takes that damage and hurts others. I have not seen it go any other way. Either that person is hurting themselves more or hurting others more, or they help others heal from it by testimony, by telling them that God is there, that He was always in those moments where they were struggling and they were down. So I ended up getting into drugs. I ended up becoming completely addicted to pornography, addicted to sex. I was completely controlled. I spent every minute of my life either masturbating, having sex, or getting high. What's up, Mark? How you doing, brother? God bless you. And I was caught in this, what my dad would call a hamster wheel. Something I couldn't get off. Every single day, I was either glued to that computer watching pornography. And this is as a little kid. You're talking about like 9, 10 years old, I'm doing this. You know what I mean? Like, um, so it's sick, right? It's sick how this world, it could take you and it could corrupt you down to a certain point and level that you have never been down before. And it's hard for me to sort of go back to who I was, to even think about who I used to be, because I've become a new creation in Christ. I mean, I have a thorn in my side to remind me that my humanity is just right there. And that's okay. I need to remember that I'm only human. I am not a god. Just because I receive prophecy, the word of God, and I'm able to talk to him does not mean that I am anything more than human. I am not. So I'm trying to like think back, and I'm trying to remember what that pain was like, because I have had the comfort and the love of God and the peace for the past 4 or 5 months. And it's almost impossible for me to go back to feeling the way I used to feel. It's hard for me to even remember what that feels like. And it could for you too. That is the beauty. And right now, I'm fighting a spiritual battle right as we speak. Right as I'm saying this. Hello, I'm from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. You should visit it. Truly visit. Dude, that's the devil, bro. That is the devil. Dude, the literally the Saudi Arabian prince is like the Antichrist. So I'm good on that. But what's good? How you ain't ready part two? How you doing, brother? How you doing? You got your coffee this morning? Good. So I went through my life as a teenager, constantly looking for the love and the acceptance of others. I was popular, but it's because I was popular, and I can't even tell you why. I'm trying to think of a reason why, but I can't tell you why. But even though I was popular, and even though, a lot of people liked me and everything else, right? My self-value, my self-worth was low. It didn't mean anything to me necessarily that all those people liked me. I mean, it ultimately didn't change how I feel about myself. I mean, it's just good I had people around me. But that's the thing, is that I was surrounded by people and I was feeling alone, even as a child. Good morning. Absolutely, brother. So even though I was surrounded by people, I felt so alone. And you're talking about like a 5, 6 year old kid, right? Like, they should not be having existential thoughts like this. That is so abnormal. When's the last time that you heard a 5 year old kid, say that I think I'm different than all the other kids and all this? It's very rare. I would speak with old people, I would speak with adults, I would converse with them over conversing with children because I was able to have an actual conversation. And I lost, some of my innocence as a child I kept, but I lost a lot of it. And when you lose your innocence as a child, you are forced to grow up. And when you are forced to grow up in certain ways, well, there's some sort of thing that got to go, right? So I ended up living my life completely trying to fill that gaping, raging hole that I just could not shut. That voice in the side of your head that just screams at you, telling you that you aren't enough, that you aren't lovable, that your life is going to suffer, and that you're going to have nothing but misery, and that you're always going to fail at every single thing you do, and that nobody will ever love you or care about you. And you want to know something? That will always be a lie. Even if there's not a single damn person on this planet that cares about me or loves me, there is one being, one thing that loves you more than anything else, and that is our Lord and Savior. And He is always there. Yes, a child that was forced to grow up too fast. Exactly. Yes, it's a tragedy. And when you're a child that's forced to grow up too fast, well, you end up having coping mechanisms. Okay, so what sort of coping mechanisms does a child have? So I would tell you this. Mine used to be video games. So I was a 5 year old. I would be stressed. I'd be coping with like what was depression before I even know it was depression, and suicidal thoughts before I even know what suicidal thoughts were. I was coping with that by video games. And I spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And there's this overarching theme of escapism in my life. I had spent all my time, energy, effort, intelligence just trying to escape. So I took that feeling of rejection, that feeling of not being able to love myself, and I was looking for it elsewhere. I was looking outward instead of in. And what I mean by in is I don't mean like your personal self. I mean the Holy Spirit that resides in you. And then praying to God, right? I don't what I mean is not the outward world. I'm talking about like outwardly, yes, you have to go towards God. That's outside of yourself. But I'm talking about the worldly. You know, the worldly will let you down. The worldly will deceive you that they have the cure while they're giving you the poison, that they got the antidote while they're giving you the poison. And they're telling you, hey, well, this is what's really going to fix you. And then you use that, you use that cure that they give you, which is really, a disease. And then you end up progressing worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Mine was constantly and being in my bubble, just, yeah, exactly. Yes. Daydreaming. But that's the thing. It's like, I daydreamed a lot. I was constantly escaping. So I didn't love myself. I was, escaping life, and I'm a child. Now I'm the age of a teenager. So what do I do? Well, I look for that love outwardly. I have sex at a young age, of course, because I'm exposed. I'm exposed to pornography. I'm exposed to sex in real life at a young age. And then, of course, I'm a good looking man. You know what I mean? To most people. So it's like I got laid like at a very young age. I had sex at a very young age, and I was having lots of sex. At that age, way more than someone that's 14 should be having. And the thing is, it corrupted me. It hurt me, and I didn't understand why it was bad to have sex before marriage until literally I got older. Hell, even I didn't even understand it until this year. But there's a level of pain, corruption, and things that happen when you lose your innocence and when you have these sorts of traumatic events happen to you. So I was completely damaged, and I was just looking for any way to heal the pain. And so I had these girlfriends, and then everything was great while I was having sex with them. I wasn't thinking about the pain and suffering of life. When I was, you know what I mean, hanging out with them and I was making them laugh and having a good time, I wasn't thinking about the pain and suffering of life. And I would have them over my house for hours every day, and then they would go home, and then it would be pretty much time for bed after. So I spent my entire life not really dealing with reality. I spent my entire life just living in this simulation that I created of video games, porn, and having sex with, my girlfriend, or being promiscuous if I wasn't with anybody. And all I found was emptiness. All I found was empty wells. I kept drinking from the water, but I was left thirsty. And nothing ever seemed to quench my thirst. It wasn't until I found Jesus, it wasn't until I gave my life to God that I was able to, receive that blessing of healing, to not be suffering, and to actually have a chance to fight in this world. But it's only because of God. It's only because of Jesus that I get that chance. And it's hard for me to sort of dig up that past pain and experience what it feels like, because it's like it feels like a lifetime ago. What's up, Dylan? How you doing, brother? But yeah, I spent every single day of my life just chasing a feeling, chasing escaping, chasing something that was, not of God. And if you chase anything of this world that is not of God, it is going to eat you alive. What's up, Open Eyes? Good morning. How you doing today? And that's the thing we need to understand, right? Is that when we look outside and we start chasing things that are of this world and not of God, well, it's going to let us down. It's going to hurt us. It's going to cause us pain and suffering like we never seen before. And that's exactly what happened. What's good, Dylan? That's exactly what happened, right? So when I began using drugs, I was young. I was very young. I was 16, 17 when I first smoked weed. But the weed, which I smoked for like a year before I got put on painkillers and stuff, was all that I used. But I was also drinking as well. What's up, Michael Jansen? Chasing dragons until we meet Christ. Amen. Thank thank you for your testimony. It's truly helpful for those who have. Yes, absolutely, buddy. Absolutely, not a problem. And that's the thing is like those drugs, right? Is what I started putting my faith in because they were the things that were removing the pain, removing quote unquote the pain of existence from my life. You know what I mean? And that's why this was all part of my journey to shape me into who I need to be. All this suffering was purposeful, you know. And that's the thing. I don't want anybody that's struggling with addiction or struggling with mental health or depression or life issues or whatever, right? If you give your life to Christ and you still struggle, you know, that it's supposed to be like that. It's just that God allows it to be easier because now you have him for support. Now you have him for guidance. Now you have him to, you know, protect you when you need protecting, and that he will let you learn a lesson without learning it too hard. Because I'm telling you, the lessons that you learn when you are out on your own are so much worse. It's so much harder. And the thing is, you could keep having these events happen to you and just not understand or have the wisdom to understand why your life is so terrible and bad. Because it wasn't until I found God that I understood why my life was so terrible and was so bad. Absolutely, brother. How you doing, Truth? Yes, trials and tribulations, exactly. And we get forged in the fire, and we are built as warriors for Christ. But I'm going to get back into the testimony. So I was trying to escape. I was trying to just numb any negative emotion. And I did this by playing video games, watching porn, having girlfriends that I spent all my time, energy, love to. And like, you know, this was starts to become a recurring pattern in my life as well. Drugs, girls, you get what I mean? Um, and those are probably like the two biggest things that have kept me down. So I got in a car accident and I was 16, 17, and I ended up with herniated discs. My back is now permanently injured. I cannot work. I have nerve damage. You know what I mean? My body is pretty much useless. I can't lift heavy objects. I can't bend down constantly and bend back up. I can't, you know what I mean? I can't stand in one spot for too long. I can't sit for too long. And that's just something I got to live with. But when I went through those car accidents and I got mangled, I was in so much pain. Doctors, they gave me Percocet and didn't tell me that it was addictive. They said, just take this medicine and it will remove all your pain. It will fix all your issues. So I took my medicine and I took it as prescribed. And I did it for like 2, 3 years. And then my friend, one day, he said, bring your script over. And I said, why? He's like, I want you to sleep over. I want you to hang out and play some Battlefield. Because I think Battlefield 3 or 4 came out at the time, whatever the new one was at the time. And then he was like, he basically wanted some company, whatever. So I said, I'll come over. I'll stay over. We'll play Battlefield. And he takes my script, the Percocet, and he throws it in a safe and locks it up. And I said, what the hell are you doing? And he said, you're snorting this Oxy 80 with me, which is, let's see, a lot, 40 times the dosage. Okay. So I was prescribed Percocet 5s 3 times a day, you know, at maximum 4 times a day at some points for my back of Percocet with the Tylenol. He's trying to get me to take literally 8 times my dosage. So I argue with him and I tell him, no, that's not something I want to do. I don't want to do it. I said, I said, I'm not trying to screw up my tolerance. I said, I get my medicine. My medicine works for my pain. I said, I'm not trying to mess things up. Right. And he shaves down this Oxy 80 and he has me freaking sniff it. He puts it in the toaster. So he takes a foot scraper, right? He scrapes the coating off the Oxy 80 and then he chops it up and he puts it in the toaster and, you know, to heat the coating off, the gelling coating, and then he cuts it up, and then we snort lines of it. I got extremely high that day. And then the moment that I did that line and I didn't want to do it, I knew I was effed. I knew that my tolerance would permanently be screwed up. And that was the beginning of the end. By this point, I was only drinking out of my mom's wine cooler and drinking like Coors Lights, right? Maybe a little bit of weed. I wasn't abusing my medicine. It wasn't until my friend, introduced me to a higher dosage where my body started needing more. And that's when the addiction started, because the addiction only happens when people start taking more than what their pain requires. When you start taking more than what your pain requires and you do it consistently, or you do a big enough dosage, you can permanently screw. You know what it's like? Imagine this. Imagine that your receptors in your brain are like a door, right? Say it's a door to your house. But this door, right, it gets kicked in, right? So when you're taking your normal dosage of medicine, right, the door just gets opened in. It gets opened in a little bit, some medicine goes in, it gets closed. You know what I mean? It gets open a little bit, some medicine gets in, it gets closed. But when you take a dosage that is way higher than what you're used to, well, it just blows that door right open, that even if you put the door back on the hinges, you could still tell that that door is like screwed up, and that, it's going to be very difficult, right, to have a normal working door after that. It might get caught on the edges, and it's just not working how it used to. That's the same way with your body intolerance. And then it becomes this rat race that you can never win or get out of. You end up chasing this dragon until you literally die, go to jail, or, you know what I mean, end up a Christian. I use medical cannabis. There's nothing wrong with medical cannabis, dude. Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. Pharmacia, which is evil. You know what I mean? And just like my buddy Josh over at Lions on the Path yesterday was talking about how, like, like pharmacopoeia or pharmacia was what enticed Babylon and started like leading towards their downfall, was like the look outside of God for healing. You know what I mean? Because it is God that's the ultimate healer. We could take medicines, right? And we could design medicines even, but we have to do it because it's his will for us. You know what I mean? Like, they started churches in the early Christian church, they started hospitals. Churches were the ones that created hospitals. They're the ones that started planting hospitals everywhere. So we only have hospitals because of churches. But let me get back to the point, is that you're going to struggle in life. And the amount of escaping that you're going to do determines on the amount of pain that you have gone through. So my tolerance is now super high, right? And I'm taking my medicine as prescribed, and it's not working. And I'm crying and I'm freaking out, because all I want to do is just feel normal. All I want to do is not be in pain. All I want to do is not suffer. And I had to suffer at that moment. So what ended up happening was my tolerance grew and grew and grew. Doctors, they started upping my dose more and more and more, and up until it was about 60 milligrams. So after 60 milligrams, and it wasn't helping me, they switched me over to morphine to see if that would work. I gave it back to them. I had extra pills and everything. Like, I was ahead on my script, guys. Like, completely ahead on my script. And they still um and they still would not give me another script. They still would not write me another script. And I just happened to be living with a heroin dealer at that time. You know what I mean? Look at the timing. How crazy is that? And the only reason I'm living with that heroin dealer is because my friend and his girlfriend broke up, and they pretty much broke up because of me, because his girlfriend walked in on me and saw that I had whatever, I was well endowed. I don't want to get into detail. But anyway, she saw that there was bigger and better things out there, I guess. I don't know. So So she should have left him, I guess. I don't know. I felt really terrible. So I let him move in, right? So I let my friend move in, and because I felt bad because I know why she broke up with him. I mean, I wasn't trying to get her to leave or nothing, and I actually didn't even get with that girl until like 2 years after that. So, um, you know what I mean? I don't know. I sparked something inside of her. Must have. But anyway, my friend, he moves into my house, and because of this guilt, right? He's like, "You need to let this heroin dealer move in the house." And I said, "No, dude. Why?" I said, "Why do I want a heroin dealer in this house?" And his name was Cody. And I ended up letting him move in. And what he was doing was he was giving my friend bags of heroin because he was threatening to kill himself and all this other stuff and this and that if I didn't let him move in. So that's why I let him move in. And I was on my regular medicine at first, but after a month of him being there and that stuff that happened with the doctors, and I was dope sick. Well, guess what? The guy knew I was dope sick. He saw that I was dope sick, and he threw me bags. Yeah, reprobates. Yeah, Hakuna Matata, Kurt. How you doing? And he threw me bags, right? So he threw me these bags of dope, and I just stared at them. I didn't even want to do it. But at the same time, I said, what choice do I have? Because when you are physically dependent on something and you just don't know of another way, you don't know how to stop the madness, you don't know how to fix the issue, and the only way that you've known to fix issues is to literally by taking a substance, well, then that's exactly what you're going to do. Just because the substance is different doesn't mean crap. And this is probably the only valid point of the gateway drug theory. Is the gateway drug theory, I don't think it exists. I don't think it's like true in the way people think it is. Like if I would have never had the car accidents and I would have never been on Percocet, I would have just smoked medical marijuana the rest of my life or smoked marijuana the rest of my life. I know that for a fact because I had no desire for opiates or anything else like that. I was just cool with a little bit of weed, right? So it wasn't until I started putting opiates in my body regularly that I even had an addiction that was deadly. So I was a heroin addict for many years. I struggled every single day. And at first, when I was using heroin, it started like many do. Yes, substance fills the void, exactly. And that's what I was trying to do was I was trying to fill that hole, that void. It's deep, deep metaphysics, exactly. Exactly. And I was trying to fill that void with drugs because that numbness, that comfortable numbness was all that I knew. You know, because without God by your side, without having Jesus, you are not going to be able to face the hard challenges in life. You are not going to be able to overcome all the challenges in life. And that's not saying that you won't accomplish anything or that you won't achieve anything or that you won't get over anything. But it's just with Jesus, with God, he guarantees it. He guarantees that you make it over whatever burden is holding you down right now. Whatever is causing you to live in misery, to hate your life, to feel like you are lost. He will remove those things from you. And he will only leave what remains, and that is of him. Yes, it's an endless black hole just stacking up on each other. Exactly. So I was trying to fill myself with what? Woman, with sex, with relationships. I was doing it with drugs. I was doing it looking for, you know, approval. And I was looking for meaning and purpose in life, you know, through those drugs. And that's what my entire life became revolved around. It's all I talked about. It's and my dad used to even say, he used to be like, son, he's like, all you talk about is drugs. All you talk about is drugs. And this was even before heroin. You know, I used to glorify weed. I used to glorify. I don't glorify nothing but the Holy Father, because the only thing worth glorifying is God. And I mean it. So during my heroin addiction, I spent many days and many nights suffering, either through withdrawal, suffering with the lies and the things that I would have to say in order to get my fix. You know what I mean? In order to get enough money to start getting high or whatever, get sympathy from somebody so they can give me some money or whatever. You know what I mean? And the thing is, when I first started out, I was just snorting dope. I was just snorting it. I was doing like 2 bags. I didn't have a crazy big habit. You know what I mean? Then I started selling heroin. That's allegedly. That is when things got worse. You know, I was sort of like burnt out all the time. I was working constantly. I would answer the phone at 2, 3 in the morning, and I would serve people. You know what I mean? When others wouldn't. And the thing is, I made sure that my heroin wasn't fentanyl, and I knew how strong the batch was, and I could tell people, exactly how much to use and whatnot, depending on the tolerance, because I cared about people, and I thought that if I could just be an ethical drug dealer, that I was doing the right thing. I don't think there's such a thing as an ethical heroin dealer. I don't know if there's such a thing as an ethical heroin dealer. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, this is a Dutch chat now. That's what's up. That's funny. Germany beat y'all to it. But yeah, so these drugs, man, had a control over my life. And I spent every single day, trying to get enough money to get my fix and everything else. So when I was a dealer, I would be walking down the street. I would be giving bags of dope to the homeless people that I see that, I know use it. And like, even if they didn't have money, you know what I mean? It helps them get through the winter or whatever. And I thought I was being like this good, upstanding citizen because I was walking around my heroin. Walking around my development, passing around heroin like it's like flyers for a church, you know? As if I'm the healer, as if I'm the one that has the power to fix them, but I do not. I was keeping them in bondage, and I have to live with that sin. I don't know. Not many people become drug dealers, right? Um, I was one of the people that decided to become a drug dealer, allegedly. Um, but when you do, it kills your soul. When you actually think about all the people that you have hurt, that you have led into, worse situations, that you have continued their addiction, continued their suffering into that pit of sorrow and sadness. Well, when you're just somebody that's just feeding that machine, feeding that beast, and you're part of it, well, it makes you feel some type of way. There are souls that I might have continued their addiction, and then later on they end up getting a bag of fentanyl and it kills them, all because I happened to give them a bag of dope that day and nobody else could get one. So say for instance they wouldn't have been able to find it and they would have stayed away from it, went to rehab, and then stayed clean the rest of their life, right? I'm not omniscient. I don't know, who died from me dealing eventually down the line. Not from me personally, but from continuing their addiction, right? Someone later down the line gives them a bag that kills them. So it's like I don't know. I would assume that more than half of the people that I sold to, eventually later died from somebody else. Doesn't justify nothing, and in fact makes me implicit in a way, because I was, a stepping stone on that journey towards their death. Doesn't make it necessarily my fault either, but I was still part of that journey, and that's a burden that I have to bear. So, in my usage, right, my dad, he loved me so much that he said, "Son, I don't want you to deal heroin anymore." He's like, "I will pay for your medicine because I love you so much. I'll help you get off." And he wanted me to just wean down, right? He wanted me to wean down and get off. Well, I got stuck down to 2 bags a day, and I couldn't get below that. I couldn't get below that 2 bag a day threshold. And if you are an addict like me, or you like you were, right? You would know that that two bag of heroin threshold is real. For some people, it's 1 bag, but that 2 bag of heroin threshold is serious. We cannot drop below that for whatever reason. I can't tell you why, but like for whatever reason, I cannot drop below that. And I was just so upset and so lost and so frustrated with life and the world because I felt completely trapped. I felt as though I had no options, that there was no way out, that I was condemned and I was cursed to be repeating this life of sickness day after day after day, where I do nothing but chase the next bag. You know, every single day I woke up, it was basically like a race. It was basically like, okay, let's make money before I start feeling too sick. Because once you start feeling sick, well, then it sucks to try to make money, right? You need to try to make the money while you're well. Because if you try to make money while you're sick, well, the whole process sucks. One, you feel like crap, and then two, two, everybody has an opportunity to take advantage of you. You are at a weakness when you are going through withdrawals. When you are going through withdrawals, you are completely vulnerable, right? You are completely vulnerable when you go through withdrawals. That is why, that's why when I gave this one guy money to go down and pick up a brick of heroin the one time, and he didn't return with my stuff that day. That's why, like, basically first thing next morning, it's probably like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, right? And I go over to his house. I jump the fence. This is before my issues. Well, it wasn't really a fence, guys, but like it was like a little thing. But anyways, it was like a little gate. I jumped the little gate thing. It was like whatever high, and I got into his house. I kicked his door open, and then I scared the crap out of his grandmother. His grandmother's screaming. I could hear the guy moving all the furniture in his house. He's putting like he's putting like the TV stand and his dresser and all this crap against the door, because he's scared of me coming in there. You know what I mean? So I'm like sick as hell. I'm like fed up, and I just want my money and I want my stuff. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of stuff that you have to deal with. But because, I feel like honestly, God told me in that moment just to leave because I was scaring his grandmother. You know what I mean? Because I was causing him problems. And it's like, you know what? If he wants to sit there and he wants to rob me of this, well, that's fine. But the next time that he needs any help, then he needs someone to look out for him. Well, guess what? He ain't got me. And he tried begging me for help like a couple months ago, saying he lost everything, people robbed him, and this and that. And I said, oh well. I said, you had a friend and you lost it. You know what I mean? Um, so when I was using, I just couldn't get off. I couldn't get off, right? And I would either be using to numb the pain of a relationship that ended, like with my girlfriend or this and that, and or I used because I was in a relationship where we began using. And this is where it all wraps back, okay? So um, my friend Justin, who had the drug dealer move into our house, right? Um, the one where his girlfriend broke up with him. Well, guess what? That same girl, and now it's like 2 years after the fact. That same girl, see you later, Kurt. Love you, bro. That same girl, um, ends up getting with me, right? She ends up starting to date me. She's in love with me and everything else. And in the beginning of our relationship, probably like the first 3 weeks or so, she's like, hey, I love being with you and this and that. She's like, but I'm jealous. Why do you get to get high? Why do you get to do dope? Why can't I do dope? She's saying, it looks fun. It looks like it's fun. Da 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 da. And I told her, there is nothing fun about this. There is nothing fun about doing dope. There is nothing fun about being a slave to a substance. There is nothing fun about just being completely trapped by something in your life. There's nothing fun about that. So I'm gonna leave you guys with this, right? I'm gonna continue this story tomorrow or another time. Okay. So you could spend your life chasing and chasing and chasing woman, drugs, career, success, and it didn't matter how hot the woman is. It didn't matter, how much money I made when I was dealing. It didn't matter how much drugs I did. It never made me feel loved. It never made me feel truly good. It made me feel euphoric, but euphoria and peace and love aren't the same thing. Euphoria and pleasure are not the same thing as happiness and peace. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. If you're struggling today and you've gone through, addiction or any sort of events like that, leave a comment down below. If you need help, reach out. I'll pray for you, whatever. The point of this channel is to try to bring people to Christ. I mean, unfortunately, not too many people popped in, but you know what? They're missing out on one of the best Christian streams on the network, guys. Because I keep it real, I keep it 100. I don't ever lie to you guys. You know what I mean? I just try to tell you guys how it is. Yes, chase ethics and values the right way. Yes, and you do that through God. Jesus is the blueprint of which we must all follow. All right, guys. So I gotta go. I actually have to get ready. I gotta go pick up my stuff from the car dealership. So I gotta get in touch with my friend. All right. I love you guys. Take it easy. Stay blessed. Thank you for watching.